Everyone, well, the decision has been formally made for Munich to ditch their open source Linux operating system called LiMux and move to Windows 10. And this article from Register states they're going to spend 49.3 million euros. But first off, let's go through some of the information about it. So this helpful chap from earlier this year will tell you about it. Recently, the city commissioned an external IT assessment, which was carried out by Accenture. The entire LHM, or Landeshauptstadt München, report is 450 pages, and I had a read through it. There were staff shortages in the IT department. By the end of 2015, almost a quarter of the LHM's IT vacancies were unoccupied. This corresponds to approximately 15% of existing IT positions. In addition, there was no long-term IT support in the personnel recruitment process, e-recruiting. On top of that were issues with staff turnover and age of equipment. Procedures that are operated on outdated infrastructure have led to an increase in longer downtime with corresponding impacts on workability in the units. In some cases, there is a risk that procedures cannot be restored. With the age of software and hardware procedures, the knowledge about operation maintenance and migration of processes is lost through personnel changes. The infrastructure and architecture concepts developed in the decentralized world hinder the pursuit of strategic objectives of the LHM: mobile access, optimization in application development and lifecycle management. This is most evident in the diversity of the clients used and the problems users have faced. However, it is also hampering major plans for stabilization of operations, the modernization of network infrastructure, and the development of secure mobile access. They are always encountering problems that lead to delays, so the issues are not dependent on a particular variety of operating system, but with IT staff levels, age of equipment, and variety of hardware and software. In terms of number of systems on the network, the LHM uses clients based on operating systems Linux, a basic client, and a Microsoft Windows, a standard client. Currently, LHM's IT is about 20,000 Linux basics, 45% at version 5, 32% at version 4.1, and 23% at version 4, and 4,163 Windows clients. 77% at Windows 7, 9% at Windows XP or Vista, and 14% at Windows 2000, which are used when specific applications cannot run under Linux. Version 5 of the LiMux client was released in November 2014 and is based on Ubuntu 12.04 LTS and uses the KDE4 desktop. The default Office suite is LibreOffice 4.1, which comes with more than 300 patches. Most of them are included in newer LibreOffice versions. Firefox and Thunderbird are included and come with KDE integration patches. The majority of IT users' dissatisfaction is caused by problems with printing, as well as presentation and editing of documents, unstable programs, cumbersome operation, or exchange with external parties. Maybe the report had a predetermined bias. When using open source software on the client, it has been shown that, contrary to an expectation from 2006, Linux as the operating system has no relevant market share. OpenOffice or LibreOffice is only used by private individuals, universities, schools, or small and medium-sized enterprises. In contrast, Firefox has established itself as one of the leading browsers. Okay, so now you have a bit of background on the failures of the department. Let's actually go through what the latest is. So the City of Munich will spend 49.3 million euros, 43.9 million pounds, or 58.4 million US dollars, going all in on Windows after local politicos agreed to call time on failing 15-year open source project. Well, as we've discussed, it's not a failure due to the open source, but more within the staffing of the IT department, although we can add to that they bit off more than they can chew building their own custom operating system because that was completely unnecessary for 20,000 clients. What is the point of building a custom operating system for such a small number of users when there are plenty of enterprise or even just open sourced Linux that you could go with? Free open source being like Ubuntu, where they could have just maybe made a donation or literally taken the project for free, or gone more towards the supported route with Red Hat. Yes, there are plenty of options there, although I've just named 2. Yeah, there's other options. So the City Council voted 50 to 25 to migrate all remaining Linux computer systems to Windows 10 in 2020, as part of the €89 million IT overhaul. Okay, well, they were talking about using Windows 2000, so worst case scenario, you could be looking at a 20-year-old computer. Bloody hell, I'm surprised a computer can actually last that long. Thinking about it, they must have been spending quite a lot of money on spares for computers that age. So here's the best paragraph. The move would take half a decade and would not require staff retraining. Really? The majority of the €49.3 million will go towards technical infrastructure, with $9 million towards licensing over 6 years. The cost includes 6,000 Office licenses. That is brilliant. Now remember, the staff have been using either old versions of Office or LibreOffice or OpenOffice. So how can staff be expected to move towards something that's drastically different, like the modern day versions of Microsoft Office with the ribbon bar? And personally, I found it absolutely frustrating, and I was reduced to looking like an absolute moron, having to go around the internet working out how to do basic features. Considering I've used WordPerfect and Microsoft Works back in the DOS days and found those, okay, I'm not going to say great with WordPerfect, but yeah, they were usable. I did not find any difficulties with those. And I'm reduced to looking like a moron with the newer versions of Office. So yeah, I can only think how the average user is going to cope with such a drastic change. The councillor said that 10,700 out of the 30,000 users currently have Windows XP or Windows 7. That's not what the Accenture report stated, but okay. Fair enough, they're going to have to upgrade that, so that includes Windows 10 licenses for 30,000 plus an extra 5,000 additional staff. So okay, expecting to take on more staff. Okay, well at least the Green Party opposed the end of the Linux project. So the Green Party stated that it was expensive with many risks concerning IT security. Well, now here's a decision. Do I agree or disagree with that statement? Now, you see, they were running very old versions, potentially very outdated versions of Linux. That is a security risk. On the other hand, Windows 10 can be quite a big security risk, although Windows 10 in the enterprise can be slightly more secure than Linux in the enterprise. There are some very good security features from Microsoft, and they've learnt from their mistakes and are now programming more securely. On the other hand, they store passwords in MD4 format, and with the likes of Outlook Web Access and Office 365 with the cloud computing and remote access, that comes under heavy attack with hackers trying to get in through the email passwords, which, as we know with security, users can be the massive detriment with their really poor choice of passwords. So unless two-factor or multi-factor authentication is applied to that, then we can see they are going to open themselves up to more security risks. But there is a balance of wins and losses either side. However, if they updated their Linux operating systems, went to a supported version, then that would mitigate a lot of security risks. Now, I see a factor that's not mentioned here is the additional staff, because that really was a factor before, that there were staff shortages. You're probably going to need more sysadmins for the same number of Windows users compared to if they were using Linux. I think it's a known factor, although I cannot cite a source, that Linux sysadmins can support more systems than a Windows sysadmin. Oh, and I love the last part, but Microsoft refused to comment. So, yeah, is there another factor that Microsoft were looking to, is it build up an office or build up a presence within Munich? So could this be a factor of why the councillors gone towards Windows? Who knows on that one? Difficult to say. We can see the report did have a bias. As Linux users, we have to appreciate there is a freedom of choice within operating systems. Companies, users are free to choose whatever operating system they want. All I can think is if I lived in Munich, I would be pretty annoyed about the stories we've been told here, about the money that is being wasted. I have to wonder what the cost difference would have been with an IT overhaul to stay with Linux versus an IT overhaul to move to Windows 10. I expect it would be cheaper, but there we are. So that's the story about Munich wasting a lot of money moving to Windows 10. Thanks for watching. I'll see you all later.